Storytime about how I got my manager fired because I didn't like him. Yeah, this might make me a terrible person, but a girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. I started working as a wedding planner in a company about 6 months ago. And yes, I've always been very ambitious, but I definitely took it too far this time. In the company, there were other wedding planners as well, and we were all managed by the same person. Let's call him Tom. Tom was an okay manager, but here's the thing. When I met him, I hated him right away. He was lazy and incompetent, and I knew that I could do his job 10 times better. Then I hated him even more when I found out how much money he earned. He was making over $200,000 a year. After a week of working there, I realized what he was doing. He would tell all of the wedding planners to do things throughout the day that added up to being his actual job. But none of us realized it because he was telling all of us individually without the others knowing. But I'm really observant and I realized it right away. I started watching him all the time. He would come into the office really late, would make himself coffee, and practically eat an entire box of cereal at his desk. Once he was finished with that, he would email us our task for the day, which was the stuff that he needed to do. Then he would play video games for 5 hours. Part two of how I got my manager fired because I didn't like him. Does this make me evil? Yes. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. When I realized he was palming off all his work on the other people, I decided to start documenting all of his laziness. So like I said in part 1, he would spend his morning eating an entire box of cereal. Then he would send emails out telling us what to do for the day, which was everything he had to do for the day. Then for about 5 hours, he would play video games on his laptop. And how did I know this? Every 15 minutes or so, he would go get a snack. So I would run into his office and take a picture of his laptop. He didn't even bother to fake it. You might wonder why no one else noticed. My desk was the closest one to his office. Also, our boss worked remotely and would only come into the office about once a week. And when she would come into the office, he would act completely different. So after documenting all of his activities for about a month, I decided to go to the boss and show her everything. I kept every single text message he ever sent me of him asking me to do something for him. I had all the emails he'd ever sent us. I had videos of him eating a full box of cereal at his desk for about 2 hours. And I had all the pictures I took of his laptop while he was playing video games. And all of it was time-stamped. I asked my boss if we could jump on a call and she said yes. By the way, my boss is amazing. She's a total boss lady and doesn't take crap from anyone, so I knew that she would fire him right away. When we got on the phone, I asked her to check her email and she looked at all the evidence. Then she told me, wow, I'm actually not surprised. I told her that if she gave me the job, I would be extremely productive and get us more clients. She thanked me and called the manager right away. And guess what? The following day, he was not there. My boss called me and thanked me for being honest with her. Part 3 is up. Story time about how I got my manager fired because I didn't like him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. When I finally got my manager fired the next day, my boss called me and thanked me for giving her all the evidence. But I didn't stop there. I asked her if she could consider me for his job and she told me that she would think about it. So I took it a step further. Emailed her the list of new clients that I had brought in and it did the trick. She emailed me back saying that she would give me a chance. That meant that I was now going to get $200,000 a year and that I didn't have to deal with bridezillas anymore. Since I became manager, I've doubled our client list and increased revenue by 12%. I also convinced my boss to give everyone a bonus. I even redecorated the entire office, making it more functional, and everybody loves the new space. I also got myself a fancy 2-bedroom apartment, which has a pool and a sauna, a doorman, and I get massages every single week. And I got myself a very new nice car. I'm currently planning a girls trip for me and my friends to go to Greece. I would have never been able to do all of this had I not gotten that job. So if you're wondering if I feel guilty about getting my manager fired, no, I don't. There's nothing more disgusting than a lazy man. I did check his Instagram after sending her to complaining about how I don't pay any attention to him anymore. I started doing my best to try to give him more affection and just more time with me, but it's so hard with the kids. My husband does help me with the kids, but he works a lot and goes to the gym a lot. So when he's not home, it's basically my responsibility to do everything for the kids. They never tell you how hard it is to have kids and how hard it is to look after yourself and your relationship. I suggested we have date nights, but we still haven't gone on any. I told him that we should just go to the beach and hang out on our own, but he kept making up excuses. A month ago, he asked me if I would ever consider having a 3-person sexy time. I hope you understand what I mean. I told him I wouldn't be comfortable with that and he said okay. A few days after that, he asked me again. This time I probed and asked him why he was saying that. That's when he confessed that the only way he can stay faithful is by inviting someone else into our bedroom. I was really heartbroken. I never expected him to say anything like that to me, so I just started to cry. Then he got angry because I started to cry and told me that he needs to have more fun in this relationship. I asked him if he had already cheated on me and he swore that he didn't. The kids were in the other bedroom, so I didn't want to start another argument. I let it go, but I couldn't stop thinking about what he had told me. That's when I got scared that he might actually cheat on me. I started becoming really insecure and he hated this. I started asking him almost on a daily basis if he had cheated on me. He kept denying it, so I believed him. A few days later, we got into a fight about the kids. Out of nowhere, he starts threatening to cheat on me unless we have a 3-person sexy time. This time, he wouldn't let it go. He told me he would find somebody to cheat on me with, but for me not to worry because it wouldn't mean anything to him. He was basically asking me for permission to have an affair. I felt hopeless, so I finally accepted his offer. That's when he got really excited and started showing me pictures of girls at the gym. He told me he'd been talking to a few already and that he could get one of the girls to come to our house that very same week. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband is threatening to cheat on me unless we have a 3-person sexy time. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. That's when he told me that he could have a girl come to our house this week. Felt like I had no choice but to accept because I didn't want him to cheat on me. Later that night, I asked him who he'd been talking to at the gym. He told me there were several girls at the gym that would flirt with him every single time, and that one of them had offered to come to our house. I couldn't get it out of my head that he had probably already cheated on me with one of these girls. I mean, why try to involve me when he could do it on his own with them? A few days later, he told me there was a girl that was willing to come over to our house on Friday. That's when my husband asked me to go get waxed and to go to the salon and do something to my hair. So I went to get waxed and got highlights at the salon. I won't lie, I actually felt really good after this. When my husband saw me later that night, he said I looked amazing. One thing about me, I've always been pretty athletic, and since having kids, my body has snapped back. I'm not very self-conscious about my body, but the thought of having someone else in our bedroom just made me feel gross. She finally arrived and I was expecting a young hot thing. This woman was in her 40s. She was 12 years older than me, and she was not in very good shape. By the way, we left the kids with a babysitter, so don't worry. We all went up to the bedroom, and my husband poured us glasses of wine. That's when my husband kissed the woman. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my husband is threatening to cheat on me unless we have a 3-person sexy time, if you know what I mean. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. The 3 of us were finally up in the bedroom. My husband leaned in to kiss her and they were making out for about 30 seconds. Right in front of me like I didn't even exist. That's when it hit me and I realized what we were about to do. I was in my own house, in my own bedroom with a random woman who was older than me, and no offense, I thought I was definitely more attractive. Finally, when they stopped kissing, I tell my husband I can't do this. That's when he gets really angry, grabs me by the arm and takes me into the hallway. He tells me if I don't do this then I should just leave the house because he's still gonna do it with her. And that from now on, he would be able to do whatever he wanted because I wasn't willing to cooperate. Thankfully, the woman came out of the bedroom and told my husband that it wasn't worth it if we were going to be arguing. He begged her not to leave. It was pathetic. But of course, she left anyway. That's when he grabs his things and tells me he's going to the gym. Cried for 3 hours and went to pick up the kids. When my husband got home, he apologized and told me that he probably overreacted. Probably? Then he starts begging me to please reconsider doing it again with the same woman. That's when I asked him if he had a thing for older women. I told him that I was much more attractive and younger than this other woman, so why did he want her? Then he confessed that his thing is older women. Then he asked me what was the oldest I would be willing to go. I told him I didn't know if I even wanted to do it with someone else. That's when he started threatening again. He said he'd go do it either way and that I would just have to deal with it. That's when I told him that maybe we should just consider getting a divorce. He got so angry he smashed a glass on the countertop. After I let him calm down, I asked him if he'd already been having an affair with that woman. He keeps denying it, but something's telling me he already did it. Told me he wouldn't give me the divorce because he loves me, but he's also saying he's gonna cheat on me. I'm seriously considering inviting the woman back over just to please my husband. I know that's just gonna lead to bad things. I asked my best friend and she told me to just go through with it, and that if I have to save my marriage by having other people in my bed, then I should just do it. But I just can't bring myself to saying yes. I told my mom and she told me to get a divorce no matter what. She guarantees that he's already cheated. Should I say yes or should I leave him?
For some weird reason, my mother-in-law really wants to go into our bedroom whenever she comes over. On one occasion, I followed her as she went upstairs. I was going to get something for my child as the bedrooms are upstairs, and she walked past the bedroom on the main floor and up the stairs behind it. She didn't hear me and I caught her walking straight into my room and rifling through bills on my dresser. She denied snooping, even though I had just watched her do it, and she said she was just going to use our bathroom because she couldn't find the other ones. She walked right past the one on the main floor and the other one in the upstairs hallway to go into our bedroom. Since that happened, I installed an exterior doorknob that requires a key on our bedroom door and one to the door to our office and spare bedroom. However, she's still always forgetting where the bathroom is and trying the bedroom and office door. This really takes me off. My husband says that I just get annoyed at this because everything she does drives me crazy, and since we've put locks on the rooms we don't want her in, there really isn't a problem anymore. Well, over the holidays we had my in-laws over for dinner, and before they came I was searching for the bedroom keys. We hadn't used them in a while since we only lock the doors when my mother-in-law comes over. My husband told me that we didn't need to lock the doors since she wouldn't try to get into the rooms, and I insisted that she would because she loves to snoop. We went back and forth and decided to cover the doorknobs in super fine glitter to see if she'd try them. I did this once before, but my husband didn't believe me about that snooping to prove that she'd been in the rooms. Last time she ignored the glitter and we didn't say anything about it, but then my husband couldn't deny that she tried to snoop. So this time I covered the knobs in glitter, and for the office went a touch further and rigged a little folder of glitter over the door to the office before the in-laws came over. I left it one side unlocked, French doors, and it was set so if you walked into the room you would get covered in glitter. My husband goes out of his way to show his mom the main floor bathroom when they got here, and specifically ask his parents and sister not to go upstairs. There's a baby gate so the kids can't get upstairs either. Well, guess who had to go to the bathroom and got covered in glitter and had it all over their hands and hair? She completely lost it and started screaming at me, so I yelled back, and now my husband is saying I went too far and that I'm an asshole. My mother-in-law also says that I'm an asshole, but my sister-in-law says I didn't do anything wrong and my mother-in-law deserved it for snooping. My father-in-law is Switzerland. Apparently her car is ruined now too because it's covered in glitter that she can't get cleaned up. Am I the asshole for setting a glitter trap to catch my mother-in-law trying to snoop? We hired a housekeeper that comes over several times a week to get the house clean since my husband and I are busy with work. We have 2 kids, Jeremy 16 and Raya 14. Now Jeremy's a jokester. He likes pulling pranks on everyone in the house, and that included the housekeeper. He did stuff like throw her purse and had her wallet, and he got punished for it and told not to do again because our housekeeper almost quit and we didn't want that. A few days ago, I got a call from Jeremy while he was having friends over to tell me that he saw the housekeeper sneak one of my jewelry into her purse and asked me to come home immediately. I freaked out and tried to call my husband, but he didn't pick up. I went home and I was mad, and I talked to the housekeeper and she denied putting anything in her purse. That's when I demanded to see her purse, and my jewelry was in fact there. The housekeeper started swearing on her children that she didn't put it in there and that she had no idea how it got in there. I believed her and figured that Jeremy had something to do with it given his history. I switched my attention towards him and had him explain to me exactly how he saw our housekeeper do it. He told me what he saw, but a friend of his came forward and said that he saw Jeremy put the jewelry inside the lady's purse and was trying to get her in trouble. Jeremy yelled at his friend and then told me it was just one of his pranks, but I was furious. I kicked the rest of his friends who covered for him out and I punished him hard and apologized to the housekeeper. However, my husband reacted unexpectedly after he heard and said that I was wrong for choosing to believe the housekeeper over our son even though there was a witness, but he said his friend must have said this to get him in trouble or because the housekeeper paid him to side with her, which was shockingly absurd of him to say. He said I wasn't being a good mother and my first instinct is to always believe my son in whatever he says and never question him in front of his friends like that. I'm honestly so confused. Did I mess up? Am I the asshole for believing my housekeeper over my son?
Am I wrong for telling my girlfriend to cover up her body when strangers enter the home? Oh, you are treading on thin ice, my friend. Here we go. I am This is the first sentence. I am fully aware that the title sounds sexist, but hear me out, please. My girlfriend comes from a wealthy background and grew up with maids, chefs, chauffeurs, etc. I was raised in a completely opposite environment and still adjusting to dating someone like her. When we're not with her parents, we spend a lot of time at one of her apartments. Here's the issue. My girlfriend likes to walk around home barely wearing anything, which is fine, awesome even, but she does this even when the help are around. For example, last month, her family hired a new driver for her. He stopped by the apartment to introduce himself and she was only wearing her underwear. Keep in mind, this is the first time they've ever met in person. I felt awkward, he was visibly awkward, and she didn't give a shit at all. She was casually chatting to him while scrolling away on her phone. She does this all the time. She doesn't think she needs to wear any decent amount of clothes at all when people that work for her are around. She will casually walk around wearing just a thong or a tiny crop top. Just a crop top, nothing else. Okay, see, you saved yourself. The title was a little fishy, but now I hear, I understand your concern. She even does this with complete strangers. One time, she opened the door for the delivery guy wearing only a see-through gown. You could see everything. Afterwards, I talked to her about it, and she was utterly confused as to why I felt uncomfortable. Then she laughed and told me to stop being jealous, baby. She even said that I'm unreasonable. We had another discussion about this yesterday, and I told her that she probably wouldn't feel comfortable if I did the same. She said that she doesn't understand why I care what her staff think, and that it never even crossed her mind that this is inappropriate. She told me that she only does this in the comfort of her home and not in front of actual people. An example, people that don't work for her. She got kind of mad at me and vented to her friends. According to all of them, I'm weird for having a problem with this and I'm an asshole for telling my girlfriend to cover up. Somehow, I'm the villain of the story. So, am I really the asshole here?
Am I the asshole for bringing a homophobe to my gay cousin's engagement dinner? I was so happy to be invited to my cousin's engagement dinner. We were really close growing up and went to college pretty far from each other, so it was exciting to see him again. I brought my boyfriend as I wanted him to meet my extended family and assumed he'd be my date to the wedding. The first part of the dinner went well and my cousin's fiance was absolutely delightful. Things went south after the main course was served though. My boyfriend said he doesn't understand why gay people feel the need to get married and they make such a fuss over it when they aren't really married in God's eyes anyway. The whole table went silent and my cousin looked understandably hurt. This was a shock as we hadn't been dating long and we never discussed religion and he never said anything like this. Am I the asshole for bringing a homophobe to my gay cousin's engagement dinner? I got up and asked him if he'd go with me outside to get some fresh air. When we got out there, I asked him what the F he was thinking and he said sorry if I was too blunt. But he felt compelled to be honest. I said that's not something I will be able to move past and asked him to go ahead and leave the restaurant. When I returned to the table, I apologized for his rude behavior and said he would not be coming back. My cousin said nothing and didn't even look at me for the rest of the meal and we all tried our best to keep talking throughout the rest of the meal, but it was uncomfortable. After the meal, I went to tell my cousin bye and apologized to him personally. Before I could, he yelled at me and said I ruined a special night for him and how could I invite a bigot?
Storytime about how my fiance cheated on me with my niece who's 18 years old. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime, was sending me on Instagram. My fiance and I have been together a total of 3 years. We got engaged exactly 1 year ago. When we first met, he was totally obsessed with me. He begged me to go out on dates with him, but I never said yes. We met through friends and my friends ended up giving him my address. So this man would send me gifts every single week. It started out with flowers, then he would send me champagne, then he started sending me designer bags. When I told my parents all of this, they were really impressed by his wealth. And ultimately, they convinced me to call him and thank him for the gifts. And when I did that, he begged me to go on a date with him. I was scared of being impolite, so I said yes. But looking back, I should have listened to my instinct and not gone on the date. We went on a total of 3 dates. And after that, he started talking about marriage. I told him it was way too soon and that I didn't even know if I had feelings for him. But of course, he insisted for months. My parents really pressured me into saying yes to being his girlfriend, so I did. After 6 months, I was finally starting to feel something for him. Here are a few reasons why I never really liked him. He was rude to all of the waiters and servers at restaurants. He talked bad about his mom and his friends to me all the time. And he would constantly talk down to other women. But like I said, finally, I was starting to like him a little bit. He asked me to marry him and everything was fine, up until he met my 17-year-old niece. He started buying her designer bags and cell phones. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my fiance cheated on me with my niece. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. When my fiance first met my niece, he would compliment her so much about her looks. He told her in front of my entire family that she was so beautiful and womanly for being so young. This made my family and I really uncomfortable. But my niece was super flattered. And before I knew it, he was buying her gifts. He went behind my back and bought her the latest iPhone. And then he gifted it to her at our next family event. My sister, who is my niece's mom, said no. She didn't want to accept the gift, but my niece begged her. The following weekend was my niece's birthday. That day, he gave her a Gucci purse. Once again, my sister said she couldn't accept that, but my fiance insisted. That's when he told me and my sister that he always wanted a daughter like my niece, and that he was so proud of her for doing so well in school. Obviously, he was lying. After my niece's birthday, I told my fiance to stop buying her gifts. I told him that it was incredibly inappropriate and that he needed to take them back. That's when he told me that he could do whatever he wanted and he didn't need my permission to give my niece gifts. By this point, I was falling out of love with him. This is when he started inviting my niece over to our house for dinners. He would cook lavish meals for my niece and I. This is also when he started taking her to the mall for shopping trips. And the only reason I found out was because I tracked his phone. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my fiance cheated on me with my young niece. When I tracked his phone, I saw that he was at the mall. I called him 5 times and he wouldn't answer his cell phone. Finally, I call my sister and I ask her if my niece is home. That's when she tells me my niece had left the house with her friends 4 hours ago. And that's exactly the amount of time that my fiance had been out of the house. I told my sister I was really concerned about the relationship between them and that we needed to look for them right away. By the way, how stupid is he not to realize that I could track him? My sister and I finally reached the mall, but they weren't inside. And we looked everywhere. We started looking through the parking garage and we finally found them. They were in his car full on making out. That's right, my 18-year-old niece and my 36-year-old fiance. My sister pulled my niece out of the car. My fiance jumped out of the car and started defending himself right away. That's when he said that my niece came onto him and that he was trying to stop her from kissing him. That's when my niece spills all the beans. She told us that for 2 weeks he had been taking her everywhere and buying her gifts, that he had even taken her to a hotel room for you know what. My sister called the cops, but the cops said they couldn't do anything about it because she was already 18. But her and I have a feeling that this all started before that. But my niece says no. My fiance, like the coward he is, he grabbed all of his stuff from our apartment that same night and left. And no, I haven't heard from him since. But I took all the money we had in our joint account. Over $200,000. Bye.
Yesterday, I was supposed to spend the night at my friend's house with some of my classmates and we were playing Truth or Dare. There really is no reason for us to choose truth since we already know a lot about each other, so we mostly just went with dares. It was pretty fun and we had some weird challenges. I was sitting next to my friend's brother when it was my turn and a classmate challenged me to kiss him. His sister immediately told my friend to change the dare and so she did. To be clear, her brother didn't say anything when he heard about the dare and just laughed, so he definitely looked like he was okay with it, right? Well, wrong, because after I kissed him, he told me what the fuck am I doing and he looked like he was really grossed out by it. I was honestly a bit offended and asked him why he was so grossed out by me kissing him. I'm actually a pretty okay looking girl and even if I wasn't, there was no reason for him to act like this. He ended up leaving the game and my friend told me that what I did was wrong on so many levels and to get out of her house. My other classmates didn't say anything, so I think they were on my side, but they didn't want to participate in this argument. I'll ask them when they go back home. Anyway, I did end up leaving. Am I the asshole for kissing my friend's brother without his consent during a truth or dare?
Am I wrong for ruining my sister-in-law's gender reveal? So I, 31 male, have 3 beautiful daughters, 7, 5, and 2, which for some reason people in my life think I'm not completely happy with. If I had $1 for every time I heard, I bet you wish you had a son, or are you ever gonna try again for a boy, I'd be a millionaire. Look, if my wife got pregnant again and had a boy, my reaction would be the same as the other 3. In my opinion, as long as your child is healthy, who honestly cares? Oh, props to this dad. I never hear guys talk like this. It's so refreshing to hear. The worst and most annoying people towards my wife, give me a son, are my sister-in-law at 29, who has 4 boys and now pregnant with her 5th child, and my mother-in-law. Last Sunday, we were at my mother-in-law's for Sunday lunch, and my sister-in-law said after dessert to come out to the back garden as they had a balloon to announce the gender of their new baby. Well, long story short, she's having another boy. After everyone congratulated her, she made her way to us and said, I bet you wish just once it would be blue for you guys, then turned to my wife and said, it's never too late to try again. It royally pissed me off because my oldest was in earshot. I turned to her and said, well, actually, Alice, I wouldn't give one of my daughters dirty socks for what boys were in Europe, and the fact that you base your love on your child's gender says a lot about you as a mother. I don't need a son, so I suggest you take your advice and stick it. She stuttered for a second and then burst into tears, saying I was putting her and her kids down. The mood was ruined, and after that, we left. Since then, my in-law said she deserves an apology, and it's been a long-running joke, so I shouldn't have driven my sister-in-law to tears. Wait, what is it called? Can't take what you... Eat what you dish, can't take what you dish. I can't remember the saying. Am I wrong for not wanting to make my friend a wedding dress for the cost of materials? So I have a degree in fashion, which some people think means I can be their personal seamstress. I'm used to this problem and I don't mind helping out, but I never work for free. My pregnant friend recently reached out to me and asked me if I could make her wedding dress and sent me a picture of the idea she had in mind. It isn't exactly a simple dress, but it's also not the most complex I've ever done either. I told her I could for sure do this for her and it would cost around 600 pounds. She was shocked at this and told me that she thought I'd do it for free and just pay for the materials. Why would she assume that? I pointed out how many hours this would take me to do and all the hand embroidery needed. Then I explained I was doing this for a quarter of the price I charge other people because she's my friend. At this point, she started to get very upset, telling me I have no idea how much stress she's under with the wedding and the fact she's pregnant and how money is tight and how this should be my wedding gift to her and how great it looked in my portfolio. I don't think I'm being unreasonable to want some money for this, but other friends are telling me it's horrible how I'm wanting to charge her for this and it's not like I'm a high-end bridal shop. So am I being unreasonable? No, your friends suck.
I was at Kentucky Fried Chicken the other night and they had no chicken. Technically, I got the last of the chicken in my order before all the other customers went completely feral. And I felt so bad for the employees because when I worked in food service back in high school, customers could get pretty abusive. But now it's gotten so much worse that I feel like every time I go into a restaurant, there's some kind of a sign up that says something to the effect of like, attention, valued but rude customers. Due to a global pandemic, we are experiencing a shortage of both humans and rations at this time. If we are unable to meet your needs today, please refrain from murdering, emotionally maiming, or traumatizing any of the employees who have not yet quit this hellhole job that is serving you. Thank you. And this poor girl at KFC was telling everybody, I'm sorry, we're out of chicken. And people were responding to her as if what she was really saying was, I'm sorry, we're out of chicken because I ate it all already. People were demanding evidence like they thought they were in some kind of weird chicken-related prank. One lady said, I want to speak to your manager. And I just thought, what is the 22-year-old KFC manager gonna do? He's not in charge of the chicken supply chain. But this girl told Karen, we're out of chicken, and Karen said, I want to speak to your manager. And the girl was like, okay. And the manager came over, and Karen said, you're all out of chicken. And the manager went, yup. And Karen just went, this is ridiculous, and left. And I was like, what is the point? What was the point of that interaction? Why did she need that? I understand being excited that you're going to get your food or you're going to get a special treat and then not getting it and feeling disappointed. Okay, I've been there. One time I was having a rough day and I went to McDonald's to get an ice cream cone and I paid for it and I got up to the window and instead of handing me an ice cream cone, the lady handed me vanilla flavored frozen yogurt on a cone, which is unacceptable. But I didn't yell at her. I just cried in my car and then took an impromptu 14-hour road trip to another state, both of which are more acceptable responses than yelling at a customer service employee who has no control over the amount of cream in my dessert. People were getting so upset that they couldn't have chicken that as I was walking out with my bag of chicken, I was looking around in the dark like, I hope nobody mugs me for my chicken, which sounds like a crazy thought, but it was a genuine thought because crazier things have happened in the last few years than someone getting mugged over chicken. Like, it could happen.
Am I the asshole for touching my wife's tampon box? It sounds like a petty fight, but she's really pissed with me right now. So I was reorganizing the storage room the other day and came across a box of tampons. The box was being kept behind some cleaning products in the cabinet, so I removed it and put it on top of the counter. So I could clean out the cabinet, you know? I resumed cleaning and put everything back except for the tampon box because I thought it didn't belong there, so I put it inside the bathroom and left it there. At 1 p.m., my wife got home, went to the storage room, then came back freaking out asking if I was in there earlier. I said yes, I reorganized and cleaned the storage room, and she got upset asking about the box. Am I the asshole for touching my wife's tampon box? She rushed into the bathroom, stayed there a few minutes, then came back yelling at me for touching her stuff. I asked what she meant by touching her stuff. I was just cleaning and came across the tampon box, which I had no idea why it was there in the first place. She berated me about touching her stuff no matter where it is so she doesn't have to go and look for it. She then said I should have just left it as is, which to me was ridiculous because she did not need it right then. Like, what's the big deal? She got irritated and called me an asshole for arguing with her about it when I'm in the wrong. I said that I don't think what I did justified her yelling at me, and it's not like I threw the box away.
Storytime about how I scammed my followers out of $20,000. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. I started out as an influencer on Instagram a few years ago. A few of my posts went viral, and after a month, I had 1 million followers. Suddenly, I had so many brands reaching out to me. Some of the brands I had never heard of, so I didn't really answer back. But I did start working with some brands that I did know. The only problem was that they would only pay me about $70 to $100 per post. By the way, I had a lot of debt at the time, so only making that much was not working for me. I decided to ask for more money, but some of the brands just wouldn't pay it. So by the end of the first month, I had only made about $500. That was not enough to pay my rent, and I was not about to get a day job. I had 1 million followers on Instagram. I was a glorified influencer. So instead, I started reaching out to some of these brands that I had never heard of before. One of them was offering me $5,000 to post a link on my story for 3 days. Of course, I accepted. Part of me thought that it was a scam, but I didn't care at the time. I needed the money. After 3 days of posting the link, they paid me the $5,000. I was able to pay my rent, my car insurance, and my phone bill. But here's the thing. I started getting a bunch of DMs from my followers who were super angry. They were calling me a scammer and a bunch of other names. So I decided to do some investigating, and I found out that the whole thing was a scam. Part 2 of how I scammed my followers out of $20,000. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. When I started seeing all the angry messages from my followers, I asked them what was wrong. One girl sent me screenshots of all the stuff that she had bought with the link that I posted. She told me that she Googled the company and that it was a scam. So I decided not to reply back to her. I wrote to the company and told them that I was getting a lot of hate messages. But of course, the company ghosted me. I saw 5 other messages and they were all basically saying the same thing. That the website was a total scam and that they had purchased stuff off of it. But here's the thing. For the first time, I had money. So I decided to just ignore it, which I know is a bad thing, but it's also their fault for not doing their research. But I did learn my lesson. After that, I Googled every single company that ever reached out to me. But here's where it gets worse. 2 weeks later, I get another $5,000 check from the same company. But I was so happy. I deposited that check really fast. So here's what I had to do. I blocked every single person who told me that the website was a scam. And then I just tried to forget about it. I also had to delete all the hate comments. And a few weeks after that, I get another $5,000 check. I had $15,000 in the bank. Part 3 of how I scam my followers out of $20,000. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sending me on Instagram. I had made $15,000 from all of the scams, but it didn't stop there. A few weeks later, I got another $5,000 check. So in total, I had $20,000. This was the most money I'd ever had in my life, and I was not about to send it back. But I was still getting a lot of hate on Instagram. I ended up blocking over 500 people. And then finally, the company reached out to me. I told them my followers were saying that they were scamming them, but the company made up some excuse saying that the shipments had been delayed and that my followers would receive all their purchases. Then they offered me another $5,000 to post a different link. And guess what? Of course I accepted. They offered me $7,000 this time. I knew very well that this was probably another scam, but I still accepted. A few days later, I posted the link, but the payment never came. I waited a few weeks before contacting the company, and they ghosted me. I wrote to them every single day, but I never got the $7,000. So guess what? I also got scammed too. It's been 2 years since that happened, and I don't feel bad about it. I now make a lot more money than $20,000, but we all start somewhere. Part of me does feel guilty for scamming everyone, so sometimes I think about possibly paying them back. And don't start trying to guess in the comments who I am. You will never guess. Or maybe you will. Whatever, I'm $20,000 richer. Bye.
Am I the asshole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed until my brother-in-law and his daughters are out of our house? My brother-in-law Sammy lost his home shortly after his divorce 10 months ago. He moved in with us and brought his twin daughters Olivia and Sloan, 18, with him a couple of months ago. His sister, my wife, and I have one daughter, Zoe, 16, and she and her cousins aren't close but get along fine. Olivia and Sloan have no respect for Zoe's privacy, none. They used to walk into her room and take everything they get their hands on. Makeup, phone, accessories, clothes, school laptop, etc. Zoe complained a lot and I've already asked the girls to respect Zoe's privacy and stop taking things. My wife and Sammy saw no issue with this. After all, they're girls and this is typical teenager girl behavior. I completely disagree. The last straw was when Zoe bought a $60 MAC makeup kit that looks like a paint set that she saved up for over a month, and one of the girls, Sloan, took it without permission and ruined it by mixing shades together while using it. Don't know much about makeup, but that's what Zoe said when she found the kit on her bed and was crying. I told my wife and she said she asked Sloan to apologize, but I got Zoe a lock after I found out she was moving valuable belongings out of the house because of this incident. The girls were extremely upset. Sammy asked about it and I straight up told him. He said, "My girls aren't thieves. It's normal that girls of the same age borrow each other's stuff." He said that Zoe could easily get another makeup kit for $15 from Walmart and shouldn't even be buying expensive adult makeup in the first place, and suggested my wife take care of this defect in Zoe's personality, trying to appear older than she is. Oh, this is where the claws come out. He accused me of being overprotective and babying Zoe with this level of enablement. I told him that this is between me and my wife, but she shamed me for putting a lock on Zoe's door for her cousins to see and preventing them from spending time with her, saying I was supposed to treat them like daughters, then demanded I remove it, but I said this lock does not get removed until her brother and his daughters are out of the house. She got mad I was implying we kicked them out and said her family will hate me for this. So I reminded her that I let Sammy and his family move in, which is something her own family refused to do, so she should start with shaming or blaming them for not taking their own son and nieces and granddaughters in. If it wasn't for her family's unwillingness to help, we wouldn't be dealing with this much disturbance at home. Everyone's been giving me and Zoe silent treatment, and my wife is very much upset over this. Go dad, good for you.
You say I don't listen. I tell you I try, and we both got our own problems, but I still try to make you tired. You hate this thing, you make me wait for your reply.
Story
time on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, let's get right into it. So I'm a black woman and I'm 23 years old. My Caucasian boyfriend is 25 years old and we've been together for about 5 months. So this next information might seem mean, but it's necessary to understand this story. My Caucasian boyfriend was absolutely broke, jobless, carless, and living with his parents. But of course, he lied to me about all of that, and I didn't find out until he started staying at my apartment every single day. I would ask him, where's your car? And he would say, I got into an accident and it's in the shop. I would ask, how come you're here and not working? And he would say he works from home. I would even ask, how come you're never at your place that we always hang out at my place? He said my place is just more homey and clean because I'm a girl. Okay, so this is how the police gets involved. I came home from work and he was on the couch playing games doing nothing. And the first thing he says to me is, I'm hungry, there's no food. Y'all know where this is going. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, like I said, we established that my Caucasian boyfriend was absolutely broke, jobless, carless, and living with his parents. I came home from work and he was on a couch playing games doing nothing. And the first thing he says to me is, I'm hungry, there's no food. Not a, hey baby, how was work baby, how was your day? Nope, just I'm hungry and there's no food. I get annoyed because I've been dealing with this for 3 months, so I tell him go get some food or go make some food yourself. Then he said, you keep talking like that and you gonna end up single. At this point, there was no holding back. I exploded. I yelled at him saying, you literally lied about who you are. You don't work, you have no money, no car, and you tried to forcefully move yourself into my place without my permission. You're lucky you're not single. Matter of fact, you're single now, pack your stuff and get out. He gets mad and starts breaking everything. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, like I said, I break up with my Caucasian boyfriend and he is not having it. He starts breaking everything. And he starts calling me all types of names that's mad disrespectful. He won't stop and I get scared, so I call the cops. I have a degree and a good paying job, so I live in a suburban area. That's how I met him in the first place. So in my area, the cops come in less than 5 minutes. When I opened the door for the cops, he was still breaking things and screaming at me. But the cops immediately handcuffed me and separated me from my ex. Then they asked me, why am I disturbing the peace at his home? Yeah, they assumed that this was his place and not mine. I was just a mad, crazy girlfriend. Surely a woman of color can't afford this place. I tried to explain that it was him who was invading and trashing my place, but they put me in jail for a day. Until the next day where they figured out that he was actually the problem in my home. Like for part 4. Part 4 on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, like I said, I spent a day in jail until they realized that he was the problem and that was my place. They took me back home and escorted him out of my place. Yeah, he literally stayed there. Mind you, they never handcuffed him, they only talked to him. They finally took him out my place, something they should have done the first time. And I never talked to my ex again, no matter how hard he's been trying. Wish me luck on my case because I'm coming for that department. Story time on how I beat up my toxic mom for New Year's. Okay, so boom, jumping right in. I have a mom who's extremely controlling and doesn't let me do anything. I'm 16 years old and she tells me to do the most outrageous things. Like when she told me I couldn't go out with my friends and I snuck out. So she took away my phone and barred my window. And another time when my mom found out I snuck a boy over, she removed the locks from my room door. Even when it comes to my grades, I think I'm doing pretty all right. I got mostly C's, maybe a D or 2, but no F's. But here she comes putting me in tutoring without my permission. And one of the biggest things is when I speak my mind and tell her that I'm my own person and will not be forced to do anything I don't want to, she beats me up with a belt for a quote-unquote talking to her disrespectfully. I couldn't continue to deal with my toxic mother, so something had to change. She had it coming. Like for part 2.
You say there's no way we could go back, and that I've broken what we had. Oh, I wish that you would come around. No, and all the things that you just couldn't count. Know how much I hurt you, that I don't deserve you. Wish that I could tell you what is on my mind. Oh, if only I could make my sorry count. I wish that you would come around.
Part 2 on how I beat up my toxic mom for New Year's. Okay, so boom, like I said, I couldn't continue to deal with my toxic mother, so something had to change. I saw a TikTok video saying that going into the new year, you should cut off anything toxic in your life. So that's exactly what I was going to do. I went down to the kitchen and told my mom that I was going to cut her off and going to live with my friend. My mom refused and told me to go to my room. I had enough and I yelled at her, "I'm not going anywhere." My mom said, "Who are you talking to?" And I screamed, "You, I'm talking to you." Then I pushed her back where she hit the fridge and she pushed me back saying, "What are you doing? How dare you?" I was filled with so much anger, I tried swinging at my mom and fighting. But my mom grabbed my hand and slapped me. I was in shock and cried and ran to her room where the windows weren't barred. I jumped out her window and ran away, like for part 3. Part 3 on how I beat up my toxic mom for New Year's. Okay, so boom, like I said, I jumped out her window and I ran away. I guess I didn't think everything through because I didn't even know how to get to my friend's house because my mom would always be the one to drop me off. So I was kind of just lost. I eventually even slipped on tar and sprained my ankle and was in horrible shape. Eventually, some cops found me and brought me home because my mom reported that I ran away. My mom nursed me back to health, and after spending long hours together, because she called off work and treated me for a month, I realized my mom loved me and just wanted what was best for me and for me to be successful. I begged and begged for my mom's forgiveness, and currently I'm doing everything in my power to make it up to her. I'm gonna make sure I make her proud. Don't beat up your mom, kids.